back. It's a festive season and it could be the start of a dark new year if COVID-19 prevention measures aren't adhered to. We're seeing this in Port Elizabeth at the moment, usually a popular December holiday spot which has become a hotspot of COVID-19. So if you're planning to pack the beaches by day and party away the night, think again. For some tips on how to enjoy a holiday in a pandemic, let's chat to travel specialist Farirai Sanyika. She has a tourism and travel business, a blog called, is it Gophari?
Gophari.
Gophari. Okay, I wasn't sure which language we're aiming for, so let's talk about this. How did it all come about?
Okay, so I actually studied chemical engineering and I was working as a chemical engineer in a small industrial town called Secunda when I started my travel blog, which is called Gophari.com. And I always look back to that time and say, had it not been for me getting out of my comfort zone, because I was used to the cities and being in this small town and venturing further into Mpumalanga, seeing Blyde River Canyon, the third largest canyon in the world for the first time, and being in complete awe and amazement in that moment, I probably would not have started Gophari, because for me that moment was a moment of, wow, what else am I missing out on in this country?
So what I'm curious about, Farirai, is the fact that you actually studied this, right?
That I actually studied?
This, how to travel blog, as in the travel industry. Because I think a lot of us just think, oh, I have a love for traveling. Why don't I just go out there, go wherever I want to take a few pics? So tell us what is involved.
Yes, so I am a certified South African travel specialist. And I'm also certified in digital marketing. So that's both sides of the travel blogging world. So the digital marketing in terms of content creation, in terms of marketing these places that I visit on social media and growing my audience. That's how that's coming to play. And in terms of understanding South Africa and the different places out there, I spend a lot of time reading and just like taking a different path that other people don't. And then, of course, the lessons I've learned from, the studies of becoming an SA travel specialist.
And I'm curious because you say you were obligated to live in Secunda and this is what changed your life. What changed your perspective though? Because I can't imagine anybody and not because there's anything wrong with it, but I think because of how limited our ability is to see the beauty that is in front of us and appreciate our country.
So honestly, at the time, I was the type of person who every single weekend I would drive to Joburg. So I'd drive to Joburg, go see my friends and family, go see everything I was familiar with. Until some of my colleagues shared with me, hey, have you heard of the panorama route? If you go further into Mpumalanga, you'll find walks like Potholes, you'll find Blyde River Canyon, you'll find God's Window. And I was completely surprised by it and decided on one weekend, I'm not going to drive to Joburg. I'm going to instead drive further into Mpumalanga and discover that. And that was what opened my eyes, and that was what started my journey of extensively traveling South Africa and taking, the less traveled path, I would say.
And you've gone the oft-traveled path of Zanzibar, Mauritius as well. Just as we mentioned at the beginning of the introduction to you, that it's a very difficult time for people, let alone not having the means to travel. So how do you travel safely on low budget, but actually have a beautiful experience?
So I've always been saying now during this time, since we've been allowed to travel interprovincially, that we are so blessed to be in this country. It's the best place to be stuck in right now because we're so spoiled with vast landscapes, beautiful beaches. We've got the game parks. We've got beautiful just nature all around us that you don't even have to go far away from where you are to find something different and exciting that feels like a holiday and an adventure in South Africa. So, of course, the precautions that we have to follow is social distancing, wearing your mask, sanitizing, and just keeping all of that in mind when we travel. And because we have these great outdoor spaces, it's possible for us in small groups with friends and family to just venture out to go do a hike, for example, in Drakensberg or a weekend away in Magaliesburg and just, keep it small, keep it safe that way.
But how do you also keep it safe and keep it clean? By that I mean qualitative, because we'd all like a nice place to stay. What do we look out for? But cleanliness for me is comfort. So how do you merge the two? And also go out of your comfort zone, I suppose.
I would say that it's probably best to go the road trip way. So in terms of getting there, if you can choose options where you are limiting interaction with others. So I'm a big fan of Airbnb because it allows you to rent out on a short-term basis somebody's entire home, for example, and you are then in control of, the movement in that space and who's in that space, and you're able to keep it safe that way. So if you're road tripping to a destination and you're staying in an Airbnb and you're spending your day venturing out to do, for example, a self-drive through Kruger Park, your interactions are very limited, but you're still going out there and experiencing the best of South Africa.
And just some of your favorite destinations in South Africa that we probably wouldn't even have thought of.
I love that question. So for me, I've already mentioned Mpumalanga. That's very high up on my list. I love the panorama route.
You and I
also would, yay! I also would love to mention the Eastern Cape. I'm a huge fan of the Wild Coast and Hole in the Wall, as well as the Tsitsikamma, where Storms River meets the Indian Ocean. That view of that walkway over the Storms River is one of the most spectacular sights I've seen in the country. And I'm always shouting it out, and I really want everybody to go and check that place out.
And just finally, because we also want people to support local, I'm looking at those industries, especially, young entrepreneurs, women who've been empowered by having their little hosting business. Any in particular that you'd recommend to give you the South African experience? Perhaps you're a tourist in South Africa already and you haven't discovered it because we've been under lockdown.
For me, what comes to mind that's my absolute, one of my favorites right now is the Curiosity brand. They are a Black-owned hotel group, and they have branches across the country. They have one in Johannesburg, which is where they started, another in Cape Town and in Durban. And they offer experience-led types of accommodation. And that kind of accommodation kind of encourages you to not just think of your hotel as a place to stay, but to really give you an introduction to the city and to the stories within the city. They kind of connect the traveler to the untold stories of the small business owners in the areas and of the other local, tourism industry leaders and maybe beginners and startups who deserve, that time and your attention as well. And I really love what they're doing across the cities, and I would really recommend that to anyone who's looking to, experience something different and special.
That sounds so interesting. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Gophari is what the travel blog is called. So please, if you want to read a little bit more of what she has done, Farirai, please go ahead and do that. Farirai Sanyika. Coming up in the next hour, the ANC in Mpumalanga retracting a decision to reappoint a Mpumalanga PEC member accused of raping his twin daughters. The decision to appoint the member shocked many, not least of all Numsa, to whom we'll be speaking to after 7 p.m.